Hi guys, welcome back to Fairies Tutorials. Now, have you ever stopped to consider why you eat, what you eat, what influence the type of food that you choose to eat? Hmm. Well, in today's episode, we'll be looking at the factors which influence food choices and eating patterns in the Caribbean. Stay tuned. Factors that influence eating patterns and dietary choices in the Caribbean. Focus points. In today's session, we'll be looking at the definition of two key concepts. Also, the factors that will be explored are advertisements, dietary need, religious and cultural factors, income, medical non-communicable diseases, age group, food fads and fallacies, personal likes and dislikes, technological development, availability of food, government policy, and also natural disasters. Now, let us look at the definition of the key terms. Now, eating patterns. What are eating patterns? Right? So, eating pattern represents the totality of all foods and beverages someone consumes. So, eating patterns refers to everything that someone consumes, right? Now, what are food choice? Food choice similarly refers to how people decide on what to buy and eat. So today we'll be exploring the factors that influence our eating patterns and food choices. Let's go. First factor that we'll be exploring is income available versus the cost of food. How does the income or money available affects one eating pattern or dietary choices? Let us see. Now, would you agree that the income affects the amount of money spent on foods and also the types of food that is purchased from each food group, right? So there are how many food groups? There are 6 food groups also. And the most expensive group would be what? Food from animals, right? So depending on the type of money that is available, persons will shop based on what they can afford, right? Now, inadequate income can limit both the quantity and quality of food. Now, the quantity referring to the amount of food that is purchased, and the quality refers to how nutritionally adequate is that particular food. How beneficial is it to the body? Now, foods that are normally high in protein tend to be what? Tend to be more expensive than other foods that may be found in foods from staples or legumes, right? Now, in comparing the proteins, you may find out that plant protein is much cheaper or less expensive than the food from animals. So, based on these factors, persons may purchase with those in mind, right? So, people spend according to what they can afford. But people with larger income also make unhealthy food choices. So it's not necessarily because I'm of the higher class that I'm always eating healthy. No, no, no. Persons from the higher class also what? Consume unhealthy foods. Good. Now let us look at how cultural considerations affects eating pattern or food choices. Now, cultural influences lead to difference in the habitual consumption of certain foods, and increased cases can lead to what? Restrictions such as inclusion of certain meat from the diet. Now, based on our culture, in some areas they may have certain foods that they consume that In Jamaica, for example, the Jamaican culture, we don't. Now, in certain parts of the world, they may consume like iguana, they may consume can also think of other wild animals that are consumed that we don't do it, that we don't consume in the Jamaican culture. So based on the culture, based on the country, persons will consume, their food choices are influenced based on their culture. Good. Now, availability of foods. What affects the availability of food? So we speak of technological developments, natural disasters, and also government policies. Good. Now, food production is related to climate and geographical features, as well as agricultural policies of the government. So you may find out that food may not be available based on natural or man-made disasters. So there may be floods, there may be hurricane. Whatever the case may be, it may affect the production of food. Farmers lost their livestock or their plants or crops based on flooding or even hurricane or fires, right? Agricultural policies by the government, certain foods may have a high tax, so you may find that persons may not afford certain types of foods as well. Now, food technology and ease of transportation have made it possible for a supermarket to stock foods that are not grown locally. So food technology, right, allows food to be in the country that is not grown locally. So you may find out that person's food choice are influenced by that, right? So we may not grow a certain product locally, but it is available on the market, so you may find persons purchasing as well. Now, religious beliefs. Do your religious beliefs have any restrictions? What are some of the things you can or you cannot consume based on your religious beliefs? Good. Now let us look at some others. Some foods may be prohibited or permitted depending on the religion. For example, some Christians, such as the Seventh-day Adventists, they do not eat pork, among different types of food, right? And the Hindus do not eat beef, as they see the cow as sacred, right? So it's a worshipping symbol from them. So things like patties, mince pies, those things that are made from beef, they will not consume. Now, personal likes and dislikes. The pleasure derived from food may be one of the most important factors contributing to food intake, right? So if persons dislike a certain flavor or a certain color or texture, they may stay away from those types of foods. Positive and negative attitudes may be formed about food as children observe what foods are purchased and served in the home. Now, how many times you may not eat a particular food or have never eaten a particular food based on your family background, right? So they don't purchase it while you were growing up, or they don't cook it in the home. So persons also likes and dislikes will also develop influence by that. You may find out that persons will not eat certain food while they may eat certain food based on how often it is prepared in the home. Another factor which influences food choice and eating pattern is what? Advertising. So advertisements. Good. So how many times do you see something advertised, whether it be on the television or on billboards, and you're influenced to try it, right? Now, advertisements can easily sway one's food choices, especially adolescents and young children. Television advertising especially can persuade people to buy certain types of foods. Good. Now, let us look at dietary needs or medical non-communicable conditions, right? So the amount of food, the kind of food, the way it is cooked is dependent on the dietary needs or health situation of an individual. For instance, if someone say is obese, right, and they may want to stay away from foods that are fried, good, or whereas if someone has anemia, they want to consume foods that are rich in iron and vitamin C. So based on the dietary needs or the medical non-communicable condition someone may have, their food choices will differ. Someone who is diabetic may want to stay away from a lot of starch or refined sugars. Good? Now, the kind of food that may be okay for a healthy person may be harmful for the sick. And as such, adaptations to the diet have to be made. Now, age group. How does your age determine or influence your food choice? Now, up to adolescence, the amount of energy required by the body increases and then begins to decrease from early middle age to old age. As people grow older, they tend to be less physically active, and this reduces their energy requirements and thus their needs for energy giving foods. So persons' food choice may be influenced because of their age level. So if they're infants, toddlers, children, adolescents, adults, senior citizens, you may find out that your food choices may differ because of their age and also the needs of their body at that particular time. Food fads and fallacies. A fad is something one's play with for a while. In other words, it is fashionable and usually short-lived. Now, can you think of any food item that is short-lived? Fallacies. Fallacies are specific beliefs that are false. They are sometimes long-lasting as they may be handed down through generations. So persons' food choice are influenced by fad and fallacies. Now, a fad, something that is fashionable or short-lived. So just as how you have fashionable when we're speaking of clothes, we speak about fashion, where we speak about ripped jeans maybe wearing. At one time we had Bella's wear. This also is a practice that happens with food. So for example, at school, students at school, a new drink may come on the market. For example, Guzzler or Luscious or whatever the case may be, right? So you may find out that more persons are gravitating to a particular type of food or drink. It is usually short-lived, which simply means that they will not purchase it for a long period, but only for a short period. You realize that particular food is trending, that particular snack is trending. Now, let us look at the fallacies. Here we have an example over here, and remember that fallacies are specific beliefs that are false. So let us look. We have two examples. So the first one is green bananas is a good source of iron. Have you ever heard that one before? I'm certain you have, right? So the fact is that it has a fair amount of what? Carbohydrates, and very little iron is present. And the iron there is usually found in the skin, right? Skin of the bananas. Now, the second example is brown shelled eggs are more nutritious than white shelled eggs. Have you ever heard that one before? The fact is there is no difference. Both are equally nutritious, and the color may vary depending on the breed of the chicken, right? So you may find out that fads and fallacies influence the food choices. So persons may be eating a lot of banana because they hear that they may be anemic and they heard that it is rich in iron, where it is not so. It may have some traces of iron, but not a rich source. It is rich in carbohydrates. To define eating patterns, food choice, and also to list the factors that influence food choice, and write a letter to a friend outlining 4 factors that influence food choice and eating patterns. Awesome, you've made it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and also share with persons who who you